I want to spend a bit of time this afternoon giving you a tool to help you defrag some of the ideas and evaluate ideas as you get them. They say that focus is not saying yes to everything, but saying no to most things, or everything, or saying no to everything that doesn't matter. Because every time you say yes to one thing, you have to think about it in the sense that you're then saying no to 20 other things. Now, you might not know what those 20 other things are yet, but every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to 20 other opportunities. There's a whole load of things that we can do in relation to that to make sure that we focus in on the opportunities that are most important to us. And by the very nature of entrepreneurs, we are easily distracted.
My master made me this collar. He is a good and smart master. He made me this collar so that I may talk. Squirrel! My master is good at...
So I actually thought that was a GIF that was just going to work on in the background while I was going to explain it. Well, it's actually it's very up related, isn't it? Or sub. That comes from up. But basically, the principle is that entrepreneurs are easily distracted because they come up with lots of ideas. They're easily distracted by, like the dog in Up, where it's like, squirrel. I'm just constantly coming up with, so some people turn it as shiny objects. We're distracted by shiny objects. But ultimately, it's the same thing. And it's kind of the entrepreneur's dilemma, isn't it? I mean, how many times have you heard somebody say, oh yeah, I came up with that idea and I never did anything with it, and then it's now $1 billion business? Or Natesha's summed it up earlier on this morning saying, I now only do 4 businesses, and I think I've only got 5. So just to one up you, obviously. But it is difficult when these things come along for you to say no unless it's correctly aligned. And yet, when you find the right idea, you want to be the person that has taken that opportunity. So the challenge often isn't generating enough ideas. The challenge is working out which ones to pursue and which ones to disregard. And that's what I want to spend a little bit of time on and give you a tool to help you with that. Part of the problem with this is there's a lot of what a lot of entrepreneurs come to realize is that they have there's a high percentage of successful entrepreneurs that have ADHD. And ADHD people tend to be that idea generating person, that person that is, oh, I'm going to go off and find this, I'm going to do this, wow, that's a great idea, I'm going to do that, easily distracted. And if you read Drive by Douglas Brackman, you can kind of, if anyone thinks they're in that position, it's a book I would definitely recommend reading, because the reason it's called Drive is because ADHD is actually it's a gift. For most people, it is a gift. It's like a superpower, because you point them in the right direction, somebody with ADHD in the right direction, you can damn well be sure that they're going to go off and do that, and they're going to nail it, and they're going to be the best at it. It's why the really high proportion of Navy SEALs and Marines have ADHD, because they're very good at focusing in on something and getting it done. And the reason that he calls it the driven gene. So actually, it's driven, not drive, from memory. But it's the driven gene, because actually, it's the thing that, if you look at the top 1% of most successful people across business, something like 95% of them will have ADHD, because it's such a gift in that sense. But the downside to that is we become easily distractible. So one of the books that we've talked about in the past is Indistractable by Nir Eyal. And if you guys won't have done this as yet, but the productivity focuser is a tool that we went through not last summer. Not summer's just gone, the summer before that. And it's a tool of saying, well, okay, how do we become indistractable? How do we you know, all of those things like eliminating notifications and not looking at emails except for like twice a day, and those sorts of things to allow us to become so much more productive. Because when you do that, particularly if you're one of those people that is like the ADHD brain, you are going to achieve so much more, because it's the distractions that slow us down. So there's a few things that a few on this topic. There's a few tools that we can use to help us in this and achieve more in our work. And I just kind of wanted to touch on those before we kind of come back to the idea of idea generation. So one is called the Pomodoro technique. Now, I'd heard of the principles of this technique. I didn't know it was called the Pomodoro technique. But the point is that what you do is, there's quite a lot of research at the moment, and Nir Eyal talks a bit about it in Indistractable. It's creating these time blocks. So the Pomodoro technique is basically decide on what task you want to complete, set the timer for 25 minutes, work on that task and nothing else until the timer ends, and then take a short break. And working in these really focused time blocks can actually mean that you're so much more productive, and turning off all other gadgets. I mean, it's one of the reasons why. Has anyone got the what's the black and white notepad that you Remarkable? Yeah. So you have one. There you go. So for some people, those it is literally, but digital. So it's all saved into the cloud, but you can't check your email, you can't check the internet. And for some people, I actually had one, and I decided that I was perfectly capable of focusing as long as I didn't have things like social media and WhatsApp on the iPad. And then but I get why for some people it's absolutely brilliant, because it's stopping you, it's allowing you to purely focus on one thing. But it's definitely why, you know, there was loads in the productivity focuser, but definitely why you need to turn off notifications of everything. I mean, the worst notification, which I've mentioned a few times, is that BBC News one, bad news alert, you know, and everyone's like, I'll take the phone out and look what's going. Oh yeah, a politician has made the front page news for this, and you're like, why did I distract my day? And it'll take you 20 minutes to get back into that level of focus by those distractions. And whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's, you know, WhatsApp groups, I would always say Instagram. Yeah, you know, definitely notifications. Take notifications away, because of course, yeah, you look at one notification and then you're into this deep chasm of following different other things. Yeah. So there is so there's a thing called the Eisenhower matrix, which is about that concept of, you know, we deal with things that are urgent but not important, and really we should be dealing with things that are important and urgent, or then important and not urgent. And kind of, because in this day and age, it's so easy, like whether it is Instagram, whether it's WhatsApp groups, it's so easy for people to distract us. It used to be cold calls, didn't it? And of course, that was urgent to the person that was calling you, but it wasn't to you. So this is about kind of trying to focus back on what's important to you and what is urgent. And now with when you're coming up with ideas, there is always ways to explore ideas to see whether it's something you should move forward with. And one of the concepts that we've talked about before is the minimum viable product. You know, if you come up with an idea, it's like, well, what's the easiest way I can test this concept? A guy that just finished at Oakham School contacted me and said, I've got this idea for this app, and it's like, it's going to help people achieve their goals through a whole load of different kind of psychological strategies. I'm like, this sounds great. The first thing you need to do is what's the minimum viable product? He said, well, I suppose I could just work with these principles for 5 or 6 people, just one-to-one. Forget the app. The app is just a mechanism to get it out there. So he's literally currently doing that, because that is the minimum viable product. It costs him nothing to do. He can work out whether it works. He can get his testimonials. The minimum viable product, when you've got any idea, is like, what can we do to trial this, test it? Same with advertising. You know, don't build a massive advertising campaign, spend a fortune with a marketing agency. Just create 3 different ads and try those 3 different ads and see which one works. Don't worry about making them perfect. Once you know which one works the best, make 3 variations on that one, test those, and you'll refine it into the right thing. So with the minimum viable product approach, you can test things and try things out. But there's a book called The One Thing, which is a really good book, and it's basically a guy who, I can't remember what his background was, but he sold his business, made his fortune, and he then spent the next few years just going around and asking celebrities, what's the one piece of advice that you would give to somebody? What's the one thing that you should do? And it's just full of really great insights. And ultimately, the important thing is that when you've got that one idea, that one goal, that one laser-like focus, you go after it so much better. And I see that, I love the fact that I've got multiple businesses, but I know that they don't all get my equal attention. The trusted team is the one that gets the most attention by a country mile, because that is my one thing. Now, we touched on this topic. This is kind of like the merging of fun and idea generation. And we touched on it briefly when we were talking earlier on. But I love the idea of a think week. So if you watch Inside Bill's Brain, which is all about Bill Gates, or you read about Steve Jobs, whether it's the biography about him or the film, he goes away and he took both of those regularly every year, would take a think week. Now, Steve Jobs would actually go out to India and spend it in a like a yoga retreat type place. But taking a whole week to think, and again, this is a way of merging business with fun. And so I'm a massive advocate of this. And so one of the things that I did so 2020 was obviously the COVID year. MDRT, the conference I mentioned that was in Miami, went purely online for obvious reasons, and I did it all from home. And at the end of that, I was like, that just did not work for me. Conferencing at home doesn't work. So the following year, it was virtual again. We were all hoping we were going to sneak off to wherever it was. Was it Anaheim that was supposed to be this one? I can't remember. But yeah. So anyway, it didn't happen. So I was like, right, I'm doing the conference virtually. I don't have a choice in that, but I can create my own think week. So I rented a room in the Lake District next to Coniston Water. I was swimming in Coniston Water in the morning. I was out running. I ran up Old Man Coniston, which is where this photo is taken. There's a cycle route up there called the Fred Whitten, 120-mile, very, very hilly ride. I did that on my Todd one day before the conference. And just cycling amazing routes. Took a stack of books to sit there. So in the evening I was reading, and then the rest of the time I was consuming the conference virtually. And it was my think week, and it was absolutely brilliant. I got some really, really quality time from that. But the idea generation compared to the previous year when I was doing that same experience at home was just like night and day. And I'd argue actually it's what I've tried to do with most of the MDRTs. Now, I know at MDRT and other conferences, people spend a lot of time in the bar drinking. I actually find that I get a lot more value by going and go, right, okay, I'm in Miami, I'm in LA, I'm going to go rent a bike, and I'm going to so I always listen to books while I'm on that. And the concept of cycling around like Malibu whilst listening to a book that I've specifically chosen to create the ideas or around the theme that I'm working on at the time, that change of perspective and seeing different scenery whilst consuming a book, also gearing myself up for the days that are on the conference that are coming. It's just really powerful. So now I do that with Abundance 360. So I'll have my time in LA before and after Abundance 360 and the conference in the middle for my Think Week. But I think a Think Week is a really powerful way if you can engineer it. I know you're good at this, Nitesh, aren't you? You've done
just recent weekends. I'm not doing a full week yet because my kids might think weekends good.
Yeah. Yeah. I really think it is incredibly powerful. And there's something about that, like if you've got a whole week of being in a conference, listening to speakers, reading books, listening to books, just the amount of ideas that you come out with by the end of it, because your brain is in a totally different place by the end of a week. We can try and achieve it in a day here, but you think if you do this for 7 days constantly, it really does have a... I have to go to this conference and I need a couple of days to adjust beforehand and afterwards.
That's amazing. You should to
Yeah. But absolutely, and I have to say, initially it was a challenge, and gradually she could see the value in me vanishing for a week. So one of the things that I can't remember why I put this in at this moment in time, because this links into another talk, another piece that we did. I'm going to skip on. I can't remember why I put that in at that moment in time. It was obviously my thinking at the time. But in terms of idea generation, there's this idea of diverse thinking and diverse thinking in terms of different people and idea generation. And I talked about this earlier in terms of range, in the sense that the more diverse a team we can build, the better the idea generation will be. But there's an analogy, there's a way of brainstorming with people that is around bringing in different analogies or similar situations that are totally different situations. So there's this concept called the Dunker radiation problem. I'm going to give it a trial here. So this particular person has a stomach ulcer, and the way that they need to treat that stomach ulcer is they need to fire a type of radiation at that ulcer, and that will kill the ulcer. The problem is that the power of that radiation is so bad that it is going to destroy other cells. So we need to try and work out a way of fixing this problem of getting enough radiation into the ulcer, but without damaging anything else. So while you think about that in your subconscious, I'll tell you a different story. So there's an ancient city, and there's an army that's wanting to take the ancient city, and they're not quite sure the best way to go, because of course on each of the different roads into the ancient city there'll be different defenses. So what they end up doing is they end up creating a tribe of they send all of the army around, and they each go in on different routes, so that they can work out which is the least defended and the best route. By the way, does anyone have a solution for how we fix the radiation problem? No. What's interesting? Nobody has a solution. So apparently, if we go through about 3 more analogies like this, so after 1, not many people get it. After 2, so think about the story of the people going in different ways. So what you do is you fire multiple fires of radiation with lower strength, and then the center where they all meet gets the higher strength, and that's how you treat the ulcer. The weird thing is, though, so the reason I tell you that story is because if you want to come up with a solution with your team, one of the best ways you can do it is to start brainstorming different analogies. That's kind of similar to this. That's kind of like that. That's like, and you'd think like when you do it once or twice it works, but actually apparently when you do it multiple times you create far better ideas. And actually that's also when we get better range with it works better when you've got people with range. So ultimately the idea is, yes, you have these multiple channels in. But the point is that what we're trying to do is we're trying to create, if you're trying to come up with ideas, the more we can create analogies, the more people will think, oh, okay, that's a bit like this, that's a bit like this, and you'll end up with a better idea. So it's a really powerful way to do it with your team. 2 tests that I apply when I'm thinking about new ideas, new opportunities. The first is the tomorrow test. So let's go back to the fact that I just bought tickets to see England versus Zimbabwe at the test match. There was a bit of me going, it's Zimbabwe. If it was South Africa or it was the Ashes, it's a no-brainer. It's Zimbabwe. It'll be still a great day of cricket, but it's not going to be the most compelling day of cricket ever, I suspect. So then you apply the tomorrow test. If that was but it's a year away. I'm like, well, next year I've got nothing on next year. I'll just blob it in the diary. But if it was tomorrow, would I still want to go? Well, actually, yes, I'd be really excited to go to Trent Bridge tomorrow. But the further something is in the distance, the easier it is to go, yeah, I'm happy to do that. And then when you get there, you're like, oh why did I say yes to that? Oh, really, I don't have time for it. I'm not excited about it. I don't want to do it. So one of the tests you can apply is the tomorrow test, which is, if this was tomorrow, would I still say yes? And if you would say no, then the chances are you should be saying no immediately, even though it's, you've got time in the future. And I find this with booking guest speakers for the trusted team, because they're saying, well, I haven't really got any bookings for next year. Yeah, I'll do it at, for you as a favor. But if it was next month, oh no, I've got bookings next month. But they're not. If they were applying the tomorrow test, they'd never take the booking, because if it's not good enough for now, then it's not good enough. If it's not good enough for now, it's not good enough for next year. So the tomorrow test is a good principle. The other one, which I used to use with clients a lot, but applies in all walks of life, is the reset test. So quite often as financial advisors, you'd have a client come into you and they've got like 15 different shares they inherited off their granny. They've got 2 unit trusts that their best mate sold them when he worked for Allied Dunbar. And they've got all of these different bits of finances. And you're trying to persuade, look, all we need to do is get rid of all of this stuff, put it in one properly managed portfolio. But yeah, but not like this. And yeah, it's got a bit of sentimental value. And it's like, but so the question I always asked them was, if we reset this overnight and everything switched to cash, would you go back and recreate what you do today, what you've got today? And the answer almost always is no. Of course I wouldn't. I wouldn't buy that random share in a company I don't have any interest in at all. Well, in that case, there's your answer. If you reset back to cash, and that we can apply that principle in many different ways in life, and sometimes that can overlap with the team. Sometimes the person to get you to somewhere in your business is not the right person to get you to the next place in your business. And sometimes you just got to say, look, okay, if we were back at default and I had no employees, would I put that person in that seat? And sometimes and then therein lies your answer. So you can apply this in lots of different ways.